let's not have any low mileage cars anymore, shall we? What am I talking about? Well, I've started to think about what low mileage cars actually mean and actually represent, and put that into the context of the world we currently live in. And I've decided that it's actually really wasteful and actually quite irresponsible. What? I'll tell you everything right after this.
A brown car guy. Brown car guy.
So what am I going on about? Why this sudden hatred of low mileage cars? Well, low mileage cars, to me, what they mean is that the car is not being used. Now, we are, I would say, in the final era, possibly we are the final generation that will be able to have cars with manual gearboxes, certainly. I think that's like very, very soon. I think that very soon driving schools won't even have manual cars anymore. So the next generation, certainly the generation after my kids, are not going to be learning on manual cars anymore. And even now, very few are. So certainly that's going to happen. Cars that you actually drive, I mean, again, we talk about the whole autonomous car thing, driverless car thing, and I know that traditionally or historically in the past, I've always said that, well, currently there is no such thing as an autonomous car. There's no such thing as a driverless car. So all those influencers and people on YouTube and on Instagram that are sitting in the back of their Teslas while their Teslas are driving are morons and idiots and actually doing something illegal. Do not believe that there's any car at the moment where you can safely do that. There isn't. There is no such car. The only examples of where you could do that are those taxis and stuff in some places where they have been registered and certified to do that. But even in those cases, when you see them, you've got to see how many cameras and sensors and everything that they've got on those things. So there's no such thing as a fully autonomous level 5, as we call it. Level 5 is a car that you can literally, you would summon, it would come to you, and it would go back. Again, I know that there are some, there was a video the other day of a Tesla that was totally confused in the car park because it had been summoned by its owner, and I think a car had started reversing, and it just stood there going forward and back and not knowing what to do. And that just proves my point, that there is actually no such car at the moment. Having said that, I think with the advancements that we've seen in AI, particularly generative AI, I think that very soon the ability for cars to drive themselves will not be limited by the brain, i.e. the AI, but only by the sensors, so the radars, the lidars, the cameras, etc. And I'm sure that they're racing ahead to try and put in better, more efficient versions of those, but also then to add in redundancies in case they do stop working, because that always happens with those things. So I think that very soon we will be getting to a point. So whereas if you'd asked me, say even a year or a year and a half ago, when are we going to get completely driverless cars? I would have said, at least a decade, possibly 2 decades away. In fact, now I have dramatically revised that, and I think that probably we're looking at 5 to 10 years. And that could happen.
So, sorry to interrupt. Are you enjoying the video? Well, make sure you punch the like button. It helps.
So what am I getting at here? What am I getting at is that the ability for us to drive our vehicles, to enjoy our vehicles, is starting to erode, and it's going to erode very fast. And not only just in terms of technology, i.e. the AI and driverless, etc., not only in terms of the availability of the vehicles, and so there's no more manuals coming out, hardly any companies introducing brand new manuals. I did drive a Suzuki Swift, which is available brand new Suzuki Swift 2024, available with a manual gearbox, yay, but a lot of manufacturers, so I just drove a Mini Cooper S, petrol engine, brilliant, love it, but not available with a manual anymore, which is like, oh my goodness, yeah, that's the reality of it. And of course, supercars, you can't get them with manuals anyway. That's been the case for several years now. So not only is that element there and that element there, but also there's the policymakers and legislators, which are basically going to price us off the roads, are going to make it almost impossible to own a car, run a car, get a driving license, because it's all going to be too expensive and too difficult, etc. So this is essentially coming. It's going to come very rapidly, and I think like here in the UK we're going to experience it much more rapidly than people think, than a lot of my contemporaries think, because we're going to have a change of government that's happening next month, and the new government that's going to come in is going to be quite anti-car, and this is where we're going. And there's nothing we can do about that now because it's almost inevitable, but that's the reality of it. So my point being, again, with going back to the whole idea of why am I angry about low mileage cars, is why are these cars sitting around not being used? Because now that we can use them, at this point in time, we can still use and enjoy vehicles, whether I'm talking about classic cars, modern classics, or even actually modern cars that you can drive, that you can enjoy. Get out there and drive them. Stop worrying about the mileage, stop worrying about putting use on the cars. In fact, I've always said that I don't actually like even classic cars. I don't like classic cars that have very low miles on them, because all that means is they've just sat in a warehouse. They've never actually been used. And actually, to me, that makes them worse, because the oils haven't run through them, the fluids haven't run through them, they haven't run, they haven't creaked, so they've just sat there and become brittle, for want of another way of describing it. So to me, it's like a good classic car, a good modern classic is something that's got a lot of miles on it, because then you know that it's been driven, it's been looked after, it's been maintained, things have been fixed, things have been sorted. And in order to have got to those miles, it will have had to have been looked after, because that's the other aspect of it. It's like, the reason it's got to those mileage and still looks pretty good. Like, for example, my car, which has 125,000 miles on it, the E30 BMW. So, it's not a show car, but it is a classic. It's regarded as a modern classic, and definitely a classic. And I do look after it, but it's a car that gets used, well, not used as much thanks to ULEZ, but it still gets used. And I think this is the thing. This is kind of like a plea, really, to get out there, use your cars, enjoy your cars, stop worrying about mileages, stop worrying about putting miles on your cars, stop worrying about the value, because these things are all going to be, the values, this is all, again, I don't want to say that, I don't want to scare people and say the cars are going to be worthless soon. They're not, but they'll be valuable for a different reason. We won't be using them anymore, so it doesn't really matter. So it's so the mileage itself won't even matter, because in some cases, you have a classic car that's going to sit in a museum or sit in somebody's house or sit on a wall. You might as well take the engine and gearbox out of it anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So my point is, right now, let's get all, especially if you have weather like we're having today, which is a very rare thing in the UK, but it's sunny, it's nice. Get your cars out. Use the cars, use it, whether it's modern, whether it's classic, whether it's modern classic, get out there, put miles on it, stop worrying about putting mileage, putting wear and tear. This is how cars are. Cars are meant to be driven. So get out there, drive your car, enjoy your car while you still can. Mark my words, it won't be for long.
Check this out, guys. It's my book. It's my first novel, and it's written for car fans like you. It's a fun political action thriller. It's full of cool cars and spectacular action. Get your copy now at Amazon.com. Shout out time, guys. Thank you so much. Hey, if you enjoy my content, why not get involved? Buy me a coffee. You can do that at either of these links, or if you're watching on YouTube, buy me a thanks or take out a membership. It all helps. It really does.